So last chapter, just open here 1 second. We talked about the Christ grid, planetary nodes, the story of Atlantis, and then this chapter, Drunvalo will focus on Egypt and Egypt's role in the evolution of consciousness. So he started talking about the three levels of consciousness, and I would like to start the discussion there. So he goes back and forth on this, and for me, it's fascinating how so many different cultures have an understanding of this. Right, so they always have three animals, and typically is one for underworld or the one that walk on earth, like the snake, which he mentions is underworld, and that will be related to the microcosmos. And then we have something on our level. So in Egypt it was the snake, the eye of Horus symbolizing ourselves, which is the middle way, and the condor, which is the higher consciousness. For me, the best way of understanding and the best way he put it was the analogy with Osiris. So after the death, Osiris is in the bottom of the river, on the bottom of the the river Nile, and that is the the first level of consciousness. So deep in the waters and connected, right? When you think of water, I mean, one droplet, it's also the whole river. So he mentions the aborigines, like when one gets a feeling or a thought, they all get uh, that same thought very quickly, almost like a group soul or an animal soul. You can think of, you know, a group of wolves. They're more like a collective consciousness, and then we go from that collective consciousness to individual consciousness, which is what we are right now. So very separated. So we need to separate ourselves to have our own experiences and get the understanding. And doing that, he also mentioned the Osiris split in multiple pieces after Seth figured that uh, Isis was trying to resurrect him. And we finally have the third level of consciousness, which is the integration. We have a consciousness that was together but didn't know how it is to be separated, how to be an individual, and then it separates itself. It got splitted or divided from the source, so it can experience it itself. And then on the third one, it gets back together, and now you can have the vision of the big picture, the vision of the wholeness. And yeah, for me, the Osiris analogy really helped me to understand those three different levels. And I'm gonna pause here for the three levels. I don't know if you guys have any comments or questions this
Yeah,
topic.
I mean that just like summarizes everything so well. It's just a really good analogy. It's a lot like I mean I think that personally is enough to meditate on and get really really far.
Yeah, that's true. And then in these three levels of consciousness, if you wanna try to relate with that even further, we can also bring the three concepts that he mentioned: dying, resurrecting, and ascending. And he mentions how all of them are related to memory, right? So when we're dying, we're in a samsara cycle. We just keep reincarnating, born and reincarnating, but without the memory. So I would say that's the first level of consciousness. We don't have the memory of what we learned. Then we go through the second level of consciousness, which is resurrecting, which is be born with the memory. And we have some people on earth that are ready with that capability, with that knowledge. Like with, for example, Matthias, he was born with all of his memories. And I believe we're going in a direction where all human beings will remember their memories. We're not quite there yet, but I think that's where we're going. And at some point, we'll be able to ascend. And in the Bible, we have, I think, only two cases. We have Elijah. We have Elijah who ascended, and he didn't need to die. He just chose to go from one stage to the other. And I can't remember who was this second one, but I'm pretty sure there's another example of an ascending case in the Bible.
Can't remember who it was.
Yeah. But then, yeah, I think it's interesting how he put those three different levels of consciousness. And then he talks about the difference between dying, resurrecting, and ascending, um, which give, gave me another perspective. Resurrecting, I never thought resurrecting that way. So it put a nice perspective of what it is and how memory is important in that experience. How to bring memory from one side to the veil to the other is important to the evolution of that being in matter, right? Because
Right.
when you're on the other side and we are the whole, okay, we're the whole, but then when we come here, if you don't bring that knowledge, we're starting from zero, right? And I'm gonna pause that again. So on dying, resurrecting, and ascending. Anything you guys have to add here?
Yeah, it's just so deep, and it can be interpreted like from you have to like change perspectives, you know,
Yeah.
really, because we think about these things on like a physical level, when if you think about it more like on a spiritual level, right? Like what it is, it's you could say the ego it dies, and then the true self is resurrected there, and you ascend. It's just man, it's just you could take that to so many different perspectives. I like it.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, this is Kathy. It seems like so the first level of consciousness, so you're not remembering previous lives or who you really are. And then as you progress, then every time, well, you don't, when you reincarnate, you do remember who you are. But I guess you actually get to that place where you don't reincarnate anymore because you know who you are and you are beyond the ego.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of my thought on it.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, and I really believe, Caddy, that more and more people will born with that memory. Just as we keep seeing people speaking their truth and speaking how they remember past lives and how what they're doing with that. I think this is already amazing. And in this time now, we also have a tool to remember who we were, which is the Akashic Records. I thought, when I found that out, I thought it was amazing. Like just the concept of knowing my life, in this present life, and kind of rescue the fractals of who I was. Yeah, I think we are in that time, like where we're in the last life we won't remember our lives. I believe next lives for all of us here, we're gonna remember all of our past lives.
Yeah,
I
I,
really do.
I agree, man.
So if I could just back up 1 second. So how does that relate, the memory, how does that relate to the resurrection and ascension?
Okay, so
Okay.
when you resurrect, you're supposed to remember your past lives. You're bringing that
Okay.
energy with you.
So then you know
And
who you are.
you
You have that knowledge of who you really are, which is beyond just this physical one-time life.
Right.
exactly. We can think
Okay.
that we can think as a fractal. So if I have my higher self here, every time I die and I reincarnate, I'm creating multiple fractals. But as I go back, I die as Myron, and then I'm my higher self again on the other side of the veil. And being my higher self, I recognize I am God, right? So I can see
Hmm.
everything. And then I reincarnate, but I'm not resurrecting. I'm not at that level. So I'm another being. Let's say I'm Jonathan now, and
Hmm.
as Jonathan, I don't remember who was Myron. That was another fractal. So that is the process of dying and reincarnating,
Hmm.
which some you can also relate that with the samsara wheel. But when you're resurrecting, you just go through from one side to the veil to the other with
Oh,
the
okay.
knowledge and the wisdom. So it's like now when I come to the earth, I'm gonna recognize all of the fractals of this higher self. So this higher self just splitted himself in multiple versions. They were all separated. They learned a ton, and but they are separated. You know, they are in the second level of consciousness. So to
Okay.
put it all together, I need to go to the next level, and I need to integrate those experiences. Does it make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Hmm.
That's the way I see it. And the last thought was that I believe this is the last life we are dying and reborning, like in the first level. And I believe next time we reincarnate, we won't just reincarnate. We're gonna bring it all. We're gonna be already in that level of consciousness where we can remember it all. I think the world is changing, energy is changing so rapidly that we're gonna be able to do it in our next lives. I hope so.
Yeah.
Me too.
Like I know in my own experience, at least I see so many people waking up, if nothing else, to start questioning and looking for these, answers. So that's a good sign for sure.
Oh
And
yeah.
I definitely think even people, in this life are gonna attain, and definitely next life, next time I think
Yeah,
also.
that's right.
Uh,
That's a good point. Even in this life, yeah, we can still
Yeah,
remember
no.
who we
I
are.
mean, to me, it feels like you almost have to do it in, a
Secret
life.
life.
When you're in that life, you
Yeah.
have to reach, and then you consciously go, ascend, and then you choose. Oh, do I need to come back? Do I, what do I want to do now? What
Yeah.
work do I need to do? On what plane? I guess
Yeah.
that's the way I kind of see it.
It is a great point. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like we do need to get there now
Yeah.
to jump again. I just feel like next time we won't carry that much. You
Right.
know, as the energy get more subtle and higher vibration, we
Yeah.
it's just gonna get easier and easier. Like we did the heavy lift work.
Right. Yeah. It's just, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. If you don't, it's just going to be easier, right? Easier and easier. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So ascension would be when you're beyond having to reincarnate, like you're beyond that. You are
Yes.
one. You are.
Yeah.
You realize your divinity, that you're one with everything.
Yes.
Cool.
And then at that point, when we can relate to the ascended masters. So when they come to Earth, it's typically in a mission,
Mm.
and when they incarnate, they have that mission so clear and so strong to them. They can see beyond the veil. They can see why they're here and what they need to do, because they bring and they're connected to their higher self all the time. They live here and now. So that's kind of the ultimate level, and yeah, it's going to be beautiful. I mean, we're getting there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I got that. Thank you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That was good. Thanks.
And then talking about ascension and ascended masters, then I would like to jump to the Akhenaton's Mystery School. Here, there's a lot of good information, and as I typically do, I'd like to bring some context because this information Drunvalo brings in this chapter is also found in so many different literatures, different authors, a little different perspective, but same essence. So when we talk about the mystery schools over the years, there is some um consensus that Akhenaten was the pharaoh should bring that together. So I'm a Rosicrucian, and Rosicrucians, Freemasons, um, Theosophists, and many occult orders, they agree that Akhenaten was the one who awake for the ancient truth from Atlantis and bring that back. So when he was born, Egypt was very corrupted by the priests because they got so powerful, and also by the militaries, but mainly by the priests because they were so powerful. They magic was used wide openly in Egypt, but not necessarily for the good purpose. And then it got very exoteric, not esoteric. It was to the public, right? And then Akhenaten, he was born with this very clear um, mission to unify the religions, get the power back from the priests, and go back to the belief of one God. So that got completely lost in ancient Egypt at the point where people were worshiping gods almost like objects, so the understanding really got lost. And then Akhenaten came back to put that concept back together. And as John Vulu mentioned, he puts that information in the Akashic records in the field, so we could start remembering um, that there was only one God, and that was within, not without. Uh, and there is also a consensus that in that time the Great White Brotherhood was formed. There is another book, which is this one. I have it in Portuguese, but there is also the English version, which is The Mystic Life of Jesus. And it talks about how Jesus was actually initiated through the Essenes. And then he mentions that Mary and Joseph they were Essenes, and everything was kind of planned through this mystery school. Um, Junvalu also mentions that the all of the Lemurian source and the alien source bringing that is not a consensus. There are different perspectives in the literatures I have read, but the fact that uh, Jesus' parents were Essenes and initiated that I have read in multiple sources. So I really resonate with that. Um, so if you think of the occult knowledge from Atlantis, it was always hidden and carried over the years. So it got in Atlantis, then Atlantis fell, got to Egypt, we forgot about it. Akhenaton bring that back in the mystery schools. Then we have the Essenes after that, and from the Essenes, it starts spreading again through different groups. We have the Templars that will carry that. We have the Sufis, and we have some groups that will get in touch with the scenes, and they will keep carrying that knowledge. And then more recently, we have Theosophists, we have Rosicrucianism, we have Freemasons, we have Elbiazes, we have so many different uh, mystery schools now. There's a ton of them. Um, I would say the most traditional ones are Rosicrucian and the Freemasons. But even like the Freemasons, I know today, I don't know, they're forgetting too. I don't know. Some of them are very knowledgeable, but some of them looks like they're forgetting everything all of the knowledge that was being carried over. Yeah, so I'm gonna pause there again, and I just want to bring some context of what Rumflo says here, and many other authors and historians will bring regarding the Essenes and the mystery school.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, first off, I guess you can see why that that information or that wisdom it was held in these mystery schools, right? Because when the people have it, and with their egos, you see what it becomes, right? Um, and then I guess to bring it to today, like we were talking, earlier, I think a good uh, I guess affirmation to what we were saying is how things are growing and people are awakening and everything is that this information is just being put out everywhere now. It seems like it's this is information that people held in secret forever and killed for and were killed for, and now it's just available on Google, right? And so it's I think it's a good sign that people are ready. It's time.
I completely agree. And so we got separated, and now we're getting back together. And
Yeah.
how it came from the spiritual level and then to the physical level. And I feel we see the other way as well. Like with the internet, we're just being able to spread information and integrate all of that. So we're seeing that in a level, and I
Right.
feel that we'll keep growing, and we're gonna reach that out in a spiritual level as well. But
Yep.
yeah, I feel, yeah, I agree with you.
It's like the world's manifesting to our consciousness or something, to our level. So we're here, so we have internet now. We're at
Yeah,
this level, so the physical world's going to represent that.
exactly, exactly.
It's amazing.
It is.
And is
And
that a result of the Christ consciousness grid? Is that what's helping this become manifest? All this information and the vibrations raising? Was that seemed like that was really the important thing, was the Christ consciousness grid was complete.
Yeah.
yes,
Cool.
I mean, go ahead, Mark.
yeah. So yes, and he mentioned that work was done on 89, and then we have another event on 87, which is the harmonic convergence. So when we had the Cold War, we were really like in a astral war, a polarity and vibrational war against light and dark. We were really ready to kill ourselves and finish Earth. And collectively, we decided to keep going and to go through that time. So when in when Americans and Russians they drop, the trigger and decided to not hit the button, bomb themselves, we collective as a human race we decided that we had enough energy to keep going through the evolutional path and not going back again. So some authors will describe that as a collective choice. So we did a collective choice in 87. We didn't kill ourselves and had the world war, and that allowed time that to finish the Christic grid on 89. But then after that, there was a lot of work to be done, because so Todd did that work, and then we're gonna start seeing after that moment the new age popping up with a lot of strength, and multiple people across the world doing different work to activate and acknowledge the Christic grid. Then we mentioned Matthias. Uh, I also mentioned Dr. Todd last year. Um, Crying will say that between 2012, so 2012 would be the year that human race would cross the golden bridge as he describes. So that's the path from an old energy to the new energy. But that path, from the spiritual perspective, is not in one day. It's actually 36 years. So you get 2012, and then you have a window of 36 years where we're calibrating. So that's why Elijah was mentioning how many people are waking up. So that crystal grid got set up, it's activated, and now we're receiving more and more energy, more and more downloads, and we're gonna see people putting their worst outside sometimes, because then you just have light illuminating it, and then you see it, and then you show yourself, and some people will be able to receive that energy and move to the next level. You either we're going to receive and move to the next level, or you're going to see something that needs to be healed, one or the other. And it's not just one or the other, it's actually both. You keep going back and forth. You show some light on what you need to heal, you move forward, and then you go back. Oh, there's also this, and then you keep unfolding yourself in this process of healing. And this healing of ourselves is actually also healing the earth. So we are in this regeneration time. We're regenerating ourselves, healing ourselves, all of the past, all of the lineage that we carry with us, because we also carry that. It's a lot. If you think scientifically, we carry the traumas of 5 generations before us. That's what science was able to find out so far. I believe it's even more, because we have multidimensional DNA. So we have to deal with all of that energy, and we need to heal all of that to make this shift. And that's what planetary shift also mentions. We're going from one type of energy to the other. We're going from a planet of learning to a planet of regeneration.
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah, that explain. I've definitely experienced that. Going into the healing and then doing really well, and then going back into the healing. And I think the question is, when does it end? Oh my gosh, there's so much healing. You think, oh, I've done it, and then it hits you again. It's like another wave.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know if it ends. Hopefully
But
it ends
it
some
is.
point. But
Yeah,
It is. For me, it's that's part. I mean, just like Myron said, that's part of the process. Everything has to come up, and you don't have to work on things one by one. In my experience, you can just learn. Man, I don't know how to put it into words really, but your consciousness gets to a place where you understand how to let go. And once you learn how to let go, you can just let go of everything. Honestly, if I come back. I mean, I get locked into this, ego and stuff still. But man, you will hit a point where that's just temporary, and it'll dissolve, and it'll end for sure.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice. Thank you.
you got to stay with it.
very well said. Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't need to do one by one.
yeah. I
Let's
think people
tap in
get
the.
trapped in that because that's the way it looks that's the way things work in this plane. But it's like pretty much if you want to progress, in my experience, progress spiritually, you do the opposite of what this reality tells you to do.
Right. Now let's tap in that multidimensionality.
Yeah, it really is. Just be open and be ready to move perspectives and just look at things a different way and receive, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so grateful for this knowledge as we're going through it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it would just seem so desperate, just so awful. It's just so nice to know that we are progressing and there's a spiritual goal, and we're moving forward. We're doing the healing,
Yeah.
so that's hopeful.
And I hope you see, like, what we're doing now is part of this raising the vibration and consciousness. Every time we
Definitely.
raise ourselves, we're raising everything. So, I mean, you're doing it right now.
Definitely. Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. And talking about raising vibration, let's talk about the Genesis pattern, because that's how he ends the chapter. And starting the next chapter, we're gonna go to more. We're gonna go deeper in sacred geometry and more the practical aspect, or yeah, I'm gonna put that way, in the practical aspect of it without that much of context. So it's nice in a way because I love to draw and I love, to do all of the geometry. So let me share my screen here and I will go just through the images and walk through this again. So at, I think, chapter 2 or 3, I did that on AutoCAD and I showed you guys in 2D how the consciousness move from one circle to the other. And in one of the chapters, I also mentioned that exercise of being in the middle of an octahedron. Now we're gonna do both at the same time here, and that's what he does. He do the consciousness movement in 3D, right? So he explained how the spirit or God or universe or whatever you feel comfortable calling this consciousness cannot move, cannot do anything because it's just void. And then as consciousness, it penetrates the void, right? So here, everything, it's very symbolic now. Everything has a meaning, So as the consciousness put the as the spirit put the consciousness in the void, this is the male penetrating the female, and it goes in 6 directions, right? So it goes forward, backward, right, side, up and down. So you have 6 directions, and this will form an octahedron, right? So that's the spirit acknowledging the space it is creating. And then this goes back to Kybalion and the first law, which is mentalism. Universe is mental. So the spirit is just applying its own mind. So this is kind of the mind of God permeating and penetrating the void. So it becomes an octahedron. And as it moves, as it acknowledges this octahedron, now it is a male form, right? It formed this shape made of lines and uh, 6 lines, and now it will rotate in every single direction, every possible direction, until it forms a sphere. And then now it is a female form again. Now this sphere is the consciousness and the extension of this consciousness. So the consciousness wants to expand itself, and what it does, it goes to the extreme of its extent, and then it repeats the same movement. It creates the octahedron, it rotates, creates the sphere, and now we have 2 spheres creating the Vesica Pisces. And from this movement, we're gonna have 2 spheres and the intersection between them, which is the Vesica Pisces, which is the eye, which is the code for light. So he will mention here in the beginning there was light, but before that he had to do the movement. And then what spirit does? He keeps doing the same movement, repeating itself, so he can keep expanding. So he goes to another extreme and repeat the movement again. And now we have the Trinity, we have the triangle. He will also relate this to the star tetrahedron, but it doesn't end there. It keeps repeating the movement. We have the 4th sphere here, the 5th, and the 6th. And this shape, it's kind of the 3D shape of the seed of life. So the seed of life was created. This is also called the Genesis pattern. Yeah. And next chapter, he'll start repeating the movement and explaining all of the systems that came out of this consciousness movement. But essentially, that's how life started. Okay, we can go very deep here. I rather save for next chapter because he will have a whole chapter to talk about this. And there's a lot that come out of this. So I'm gonna pause there again.
Myron, I'd like to talk about human memory. I asked my teacher last Sunday, his name's Lynn Napper, about the yugas. I says, what about human memory? Is it in any way tied to the yugas? And he said, of course, because during Satyuga, everyone has perfect memory. We don't forget anything. We have like better than photographic memory during Satyuga. And then as we gravitate towards Kali Yuga, which we've just passed through, our memory really degenerates, where we barely remember somebody's name. That's what my teacher told me. Our memory's tied to the Yuga cycle, very much so.
Yeah, and no, that is perfect. Ed, what your teacher said relates totally with the fall of Atlantis and how we use it to breathe. So we use it to breathe in Atlantis with the prana and breathing prana through the pineal gland. And after, yes, and after the fall of Atlantis, we forgot how to breathe. That was one of the downsides of everything we did there, and that was right before getting into Kali Yuga. And it didn't happen from one day to the other. If you follow the path in history, how the ancient civilization started, like in the beginning of Egypt, we still remembered a little bit. We still had the knowledge to build the pyramids, to do the meditations, but with years it got corrupted because we kept forgetting. It was a long process where we just got more and more disconnected and more physical. And we're in that path, in that point of time, that we're going to do the opposite. Now it's time to start remembering and
That's
breathing
right.
directly.
That's exactly right.
So it is an exciting time.
So it's all the yugas, it's all cycles, right? And so I'm grateful that we're in the cycle going to the higher vibration instead of the fall. We're coming out of the gross and going into the subtler levels, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
don't forget that we were reincarnating here for the past 12,000 years.
That's what I was about to say.
To
You've
have
already been there. You've already done
We've been
that.
through it all, right? We've been through it all.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
I look at.
We're
Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. Sorry, I was.
Oh yeah, I was just to put a different viewpoint on that question, or or the what his teacher's response was like. I look at memory as like it's not my memory, right? It belongs to consciousness. It's consciousness, right? And the yuga is the way I see it is it's like the darker the darker you get or more gross you get, the further you are from consciousness. So you won't remember, right? That's like the link's getting thinner and thinner, and then as the cycle progresses, we get closer and closer and closer to to consciousness, and then you can kind of remember, right? It's the individual. You have to keep going through it all again, though, right? It's several cycles. It's like everything's spinning in relative to something else. It's really crazy.
No, that totally, man. And what is said just remind me of the netters. He talk about the netters or the masters of the net. A lot of people, let me stop presenting here. A lot of people will talk about the matrix, that live in the matrix. And then, there are some layers of this. What is the matrix, right? But the netters or the masters of the net, they were the beings capable and with the knowledge to understand the net and see beyond that. So they were capable to see that what we're seeing here, it's just an illusion. All of what we have is prana. 99.999% of what you have between the nucleus of your atom and the lattisphere is nothing. So we are made of nothing. What we're seeing here, it's really just an illusion, just reflected light. What you have that is palpable, what is the most important thing or the most real thing you have in that body is the consciousness. And that's not even in your brain, it's somewhere else. It's not here in this level.
Well, it's everything, right? I mean, it's literally everything.
It is everything.
It's
Yeah.
everywhere. I mean, there's not a such thing as time. Everything is right now. Everything. Like, and we just can't see it.
And
It's just
the
yeah.
Merkaba is a process to help us to remember, right?
Absolutely. So
Yes.
yeah,
Sweet.
so this work we're doing is our attempt to grasp that, right?
Wake up, man. Wake up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To reach.
Oh, sweet.
Beautiful. Well, that's all I have. It was a very nice way to close the chapter, I guess. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add or any other comments or questions?
No, it was a good chapter. I look forward to the next one with the geometry. It seems a little intimidating, but I'm sure we'll get through it.
It's gonna get
But
just more exciting now, Kathy.
awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate your input. It's really been helpful to get my mind to start grasping what we're talking about and what it's all about. So I really appreciate your input.
Oh, it's my very pleasure.
Thank you, Myron. Thank you, Elijah.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you all.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Hey, Myron.
Yeah.
I am interested in the work that you do on the Akashic records. So I'll send you a text.
Perfect.
And maybe we could talk about it. I'm not really quite sure what you're doing, but I saw Natalia's post and I thought, oh, that sounds so intriguing. So I'll have to I'll be getting in touch with you.
Okay. And I can send you a text explaining a little more what it is and how it works, okay?
Okay, great. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Later, man.
See you, Elijah.
Later.